Hi, welcome to Woohoo Wednesday. I'm Little Woo, and I run a modern mystery school that offers training and apprenticeship for creative souls who want to be their best self in this lifetime. This week's Woohoo Wednesday question is how to build confidence around socializing with people. I show a confident side, but the real me is afraid of stumbling in public. I'm sure that most people in our hurried, harried society share a similar inclination, but force themselves to get out. Well, thank you so much for this question. I'm going to start by exploring the words that you used, that this person used, fear of stumbling. There's two questions that I would ask you, and the first question would be, what is your feared nightmarish outcome? Stumbling is actually just the first part of the nightmare. There's actually the rest of it that hasn't been described. What is the terrible vision that you might be projecting or perceiving or anticipating? For many people, this might include fears or visions of being rejected by society, being unliked, being abandoned, or losing respect, losing opportunities, even maybe losing their career. There's all these things that actually follow that first fear of stumbling or being exposed. So just unearthing that is a very big part of the healing process. And the second question that I would ask is, where did this nightmare actually come from? Is it based on potential past trauma, or is it an interpretation of past events that may need some updating? You might discover by examining this where the nightmare actually came from, that you would see that you might have an issue with the logic behind it or the interpretation of events, or it was just a very dark worldview that you had come to conclude with. And so that you might be living with a dark worldview that is actually preventing you from creating what you want. I would recommend doing the inner work so that you can reframe your past, so that you can find out what the gifts and teachings were, instead of focusing on the pain, suffering, or past negative outcomes, or seeing it all as a curse or an affliction that you have, or like something that follows you for the rest of your life. So those are some questions I might ask. And then there's two healing practices that I would really recommend to develop true confidence. And the first one is most potent act of activism and service to the world is to learn how to really love yourself. And this might seem selfish or narcissistic, but it's far from that. Selfishness and narcissism are actually the results of someone who doesn't have healthy self-esteem. And so when you can truly know, like, and trust yourself, because the definition of confidence is this self-assurance that comes from really trusting your own abilities and qualities. But I would go deeper than that and say that you actually trust who you are. On a deep fundamental level, you know that you are essentially good and that you are a loving, worthy human being. So having that deep self-worth is really important to having true confidence, not just having techniques for confidence, not just having the right posture and the right smile and doing the right things or saying the right things, but actually feeling true confidence is what brings out a lot of naturalness to your charisma, your ability to connect with others, your ability to trust yourself and believe in yourself. That work of learning how to love yourself. Of course, it takes time, but it took you time to loathe yourself as well. It took time to mistrust yourself. And so now you can turn the ship around and say, I'm going to take time to love and honor myself. And far from being selfish, it is the best way of serving the world, is creating a happy, healthy human being. You're actually bringing light to the world when you bring light into your own being. The second healing practice is to learn how to love humanity. Because often people think about confidence as being completely centered on self, like being confident in yourself. But for me, true confidence also embodies the confidence about humanity, that you have faith in humanity's essential goodness and worth, and that you learn to understand why humans do sometimes some very terrible things out of feeling scared, threatened, or lacking love, or being traumatized. There's a lot of reasons why people do terrible things, and when you start to understand them, you'll have more compassion and you'll have more ability to have affinity and care for other humans, even when they're not at their best. And that makes you more confident as a human being, because when you go out in the world, you're not fearing other humans. You're actually loving other humans. And when you love other humans, you will naturally want to socialize. You will naturally feel confident and want to go out and meet them. When you come from a place of love instead of trauma, of trust instead of fear, then your ability to socialize amps up completely. Some people think that they're complete loners or that they're hermits, and even though those are legitimate phases of life or legitimate personality types, sometimes a lot of that is amplified by trauma and fear and perceptions of a humanity being unkind to you, or humanity not being worth the effort, or humanity being cruel. So those are all things that we all deal with, and that when we heal that, we just naturally want to go and connect. And so one of the greatest human needs is to feel connected, to feel loved, and also to connect and love others. So these two healing practices allows you to feel that deep sense of beingness and connection that is actually necessary for health and happiness. One of the greatest inspirations for socializing is actually to want to know others. So if you have this core belief that others are good and that they do bad things when they're scared or feeling threatened or learned it some way, and you have compassion, then you'll have a deep, lifelong interest in understanding humanity. You'll want to know others. You'll want to be interested in their talents, in their fears, in their hopes and dreams, in their stories, and even in their emotions. You'll be interested in seeing them when they're happy and when they're sad, when they're angry and when they're calm, and you'll want to understand their life lessons as well as your own. And that level of interest in others makes you also develop a new level of affinity and connection. Because sometimes when we're too worried about failing others or that others will fail us, then we're not able to focus on the actual connection. We're not able to love. We're not able to really enjoy the connection. That this true understanding of other people's goodness is going to remove that sense of fear and that constant feeling of threat or perception of rejection or ridicule that we might have lived with for a long time without realizing it. I hope that this has helped, and that's one of my missions in life, is to help people fall in love with themselves and with humanity, because that is what will transform the planet. The more we love something, the more that we want to cherish, honor, and protect it. When we don't care about something, whether that's ourselves or others, then we tend to spiral downwards, we tend to abuse it, we tend to not take care of the things we don't value. So learning to value yourself and others means that you will take care of yourself and others. And this is the life practice. I offer private sessions and apprenticeships and classes on how to be a magical human so that you can live this way, so that you can really develop these core skills that you might not have learned in any school, that is missing sometimes from curriculum, that may not be in other types of training, skill learning. So these are learnable skills, and I'm passionate about sharing them. Thank you so much for joining me from the Mermaid Pirate Lagoon. Mwah!